Hey, everybody. Welcome to the latest episode of our Toronto Real Estate Podcast, where we're diving into the game-changing world of Listed, an app redefining how we buy, sell, and rent homes. In this app, swiping through listings, receiving updates on preferred neighborhoods, and communicating directly with agents is just the tip of the iceberg. Whether you're a buyer, seller, or just curious about the real estate market, Listed will become your go-to online real estate marketplace. Stay tuned as we unravel the journey behind this innovative app from its conceptualization to its current success and future plans. Let's discover how Listed simplifies and revolutionizes house hunting. Today on our show, we're thrilled to welcome Catherine MacIntosh. Hello, Catherine, the innovative mind behind Listed. As founder and CEO, Catherine stands at the forefront of revolutionizing real estate technology. With a mission to align the interests of organized real estate with consumers, Catherine and her team are redefining the role of agents in the digital era. Catherine's journey involves entrepreneurship, design, technology, and deep real estate expertise. With over 16 years in the industry, her experience ranges from residential and commercial brokerage to environmental design and condo board directorship. A serial entrepreneur at heart, her passion for universal data standards in real estate has driven remarkable industry advancements. Join us as we delve into the mind of a visionary, exploring how her journey shaped Listed and how she's leading the change in transforming the real estate landscape. My name is Ian Busher, and I'm a broker with the Fox Marin team. Keep his number handy. This is Reuben, another of Fox Marin's go-getter brokers. And a good man to know, of course, Mr. Ralph Fox, our analytical, investor-driven macro picture watcher. Ralph, I'm going to hand this over to you and let you kind of conduct things today, if you will.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Ian, for that another wonderful introduction. Catherine, we are so happy to have you here to talk about your app and your intentions in changing the real estate industry. And we're so excited to hear about that. And I thought it would be really interesting to have both Ian and Reuben join us here because I know they use the app, and so they can speak to it from both a consumer standpoint and from an agent standpoint. So I thought it'd be really interesting to have their involvement throughout this conversation. And we're so happy to talk all about you and all about Listed today. So let's just get into it here. Can you give us a little understanding of your background and what inspired you to enter real estate and tech and how all of this came to be from a background perspective?
Thank you. Yes, thank you for having me. It's really interesting. I mean, I find for myself anyway, when you follow your passion, one thing just rolls into another. And probably since I was just very little, I like to fix broken things. It's really simple. And I like to create stuff. But being a Gen Xer, you do what you're told and then you follow your heart. It was all these rules and regulations. So actually, my first degree is in political science. But what's interesting about that is politics is really about meaning making as well. So actually, when I turned 30, I quit my job at the Canadian Embassy in Washington, D.C., and I went to art school. It was really funny because they said, "Oh, do you want to just skip ahead and go into second year?" And I said, "And miss first year? Like, I'm not here to get a degree. I'm here to learn and make stuff." So that was really fun. And when I went to art school, you think of art as painting maybe or sculpting, but I discovered the bits and bytes of the world, electronics and creating something and then having a person walk by an object and the environment changing. So my background started to become art and making things, but then that merged with business technology because after I was out of art school, I ended up joining this think tank, and it took business people and they needed ideas for their business. So it really was an incubator for intellectual property. I mean, we talked just pre-podcast about the cave drawings at Lascaux and how artists are the original, what did you say, Ralph? That was
Technicians
of the world. Yeah.
I thought that was very profound too.
It was profound.
Thank you.
They map our journey forward. Yeah. And I found that really exciting, and I find that really exciting. So that's kind of how I got here.
Amazing. Well, we're happy to have you here. And I think the real estate industry is better off for it as well. So tell me what really inspired you to come up with the idea of Listed and what really drove that moment? And was it immediate? Was it a whole bunch of things that happened or was it one specific event?
And with your answer, can you speak a little bit to your real estate experience and tie those in?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's part of it.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
Well, the first thing that happens when something's broken is you have to look at, what's wrong with it and why. And you don't even realize something's broken until you experience it generally. in my estimation. So, and things do kind of happen in groups. So it's interesting you asked that. So the one moment was I literally was walking down the street and I saw this cute little white house. And I thought, oh, I would love to live there. It's in Kensington. It's right downtown Toronto. And I'd never had that thought before. And I think that happens to a lot of people. Maybe they've never looked for real estate. I had nothing to do with real estate, really. I mean, my degree at OCAD did focus on architecture and industrial design. So the design of space, but I'd never thought about real estate as you might consider it. So I was standing in front of this little house and I just wanted to know about it. And I just figured the real estate agent should be around the corner, like dying to show it to me. And so I called the number on the sign and got the front desk. And then they were going to have someone page. And I thought, page, what year is it? And so I Googled it, of course. Thought, why didn't I Google it to begin with? And then I saw 5,000 people selling this house. And I thought, that doesn't make sense. That's really curious. Now, anyone in real estate will laugh, because every realtor has a website and there's all kinds of lead generation, but it's very confusing for the consumer. It was very confusing for me. So to Ian's point, when I looked into it a little further, to my shock, I realized realtors also have a really challenging time when they see a house on the street, right? Like I just wanted a button that I could push and find out information about the house and have someone help me. And I think ultimately a realtor would want that too. And they also didn't have a tool to do that. So this gap in the market was really how to utilize technology so that I as a consumer could be helped and a realtor could do what they want to do, which is serve clients and find people qualified who are interested in buying or selling.
Okay. And what led you to actually understand the background now? And that was very helpful. But what led to the vision of Listed? And can you talk a little bit about what that vision became?
Sure. This very simple idea, I thought of it as one beautiful note. An early investor I met with said, you just need one beautiful note. And to me, that was, I wanted you to be able to stand anywhere in the world and tap a button and just see the information about that property, right? Because when you think about it, how we live, where we live is who we are. It becomes who we are. It's so important. Funny enough, most of the challenges in just wanting to make this simple thing that you could tap a button became some of the deep research and benefits later on. So nothing happens quickly and real estate is so opaque. So it started with me having to figure it out. And for someone who's not part of real estate, you'll know this, like even when you're in real estate, it's very opaque and not really transparent in how it actually works in the undertakings of it. When I looked into it, there's not one MLS. There's 550 MLSs, and they're all these fractured little kind of fiefdoms, and they don't speak to each other, and there's not interoperability between them. But when you have these many, many MLSs, and they don't speak to each other, it's really challenging. Yet the technology of the MLS is not bits and bytes. It's compensation and cooperation. It's back to art. It's an idea. And that's really revolutionary because it took individual brokers and allowed them to put all their supply together so they could serve their clients by getting maximal exposure for their sellers and a huge market of everything in the market for their buyers. So the MLS is a great technology, but the technology of the MLS, cooperation and compensation, isn't being applied at the level of the MLS. So for example, you have agents in Oakville, for example, who walk out of their house trying to help their clients and they can't see up to 48% of the listings unless they're part of two boards. So there are all these challenges in real estate. And, when you introduced me, you spoke about changing real estate. I want to change nothing that's great about it because I think consumers succeed when they have a great agent. The revolutionary part of it is I actually want to help organized real estate help itself. I mean, imagine if you as an agent were part of one MLS where you could help your clients see a property anywhere in the world. Wouldn't that be great? You pay for one association and you're part of this professional, association of all members across geographies.
Professional universe instead of professional region, right?
Exactly.
Like just blow it up.
Exactly, Ian.
And so what is the actual vision of Listed? Like I understand conceptually, but now tell me about Listed and what its vision is.
It is to help a consumer easily map out their real estate journey, know whether they're buying, selling, leasing, renting, depending on what side you're on. And that happens through one idea, that you're aligned with organized real estate through a single agent,
Mhm.
because it comes to relationship. It's not the data, it's not what house and actually seeing all the inventory. I don't know if people realize that being a professional real estate agent means day in, day out, seeing properties, meeting people, being on the inventory, always being in motion, wearing all kinds of hats, being at the center of their client's universe to know not everything about housing, but everything about the world, schools, jobs, locations, transportation, building, how a neighborhood's changing or morphing. It's vast. And especially in a fast market, when we saw, which we're probably, I think, coming up to again, you as a buyer, for example, cannot navigate the market that moves at that kind of speed without somebody who you're connected to, you're texting with, and you're really aligned in your journey. So Listed is this quiet digital support for the agent to do what they do. It's a relationship tool more than a technology that keeps you connected.
Yeah, I find it really interesting the way you call it a relationship tool. And that's so interesting because when you look at all the advent of technology supposedly going to disrupt real estate and one day replace the agent, we've seen the exact opposite happen. And if you look at the stats put out by the National Association of Realtors, there's been this concern over the last 20 years by opening up data, by having more apps, by having more information, by having all of this out there at the tip of consumers' fingers, hands, that they would no longer need or want to use an agent. And it's been the exact opposite. And I think it's up to 90% of all transactions in the US plus are involving real estate agents. And that's grown considerably as opposed to what you think would have been the opposite by all these disruptive technologies. And my theory has always been the more information that's out there, the more confusing it becomes, and the more important it is to have somebody that you can trust guide you through. And so from the perspective of a realtor, it's a great opportunity to have better communication with your client on one single platform. So I think that's really interesting. And I know that Ian and Reuben have had some successes working with clients on your app. But before we get into that, and maybe that'd be a great question to bounce off of them, how do you compare versus a House Sigma or a Realtor.ca? Because I would think that they're there to help do similar things, but where is the gap that you're coming into the marketplace that might not be fulfilled?
If you ask yourself, I ask myself, what is our intention when we make something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what are we trying to do? So in a way, Realtor.ca was born so that a realtor who has a listing can find a client. When you go on Realtor.ca as a consumer, you're getting the listing agent, which is very important because that is the one person the consumer should not really speak to. It's the one person who doesn't have their interests at heart, right? They're actually under a fiduciary responsibility, the listing agent, to serve their client, who is the seller. So I think there's like a lack of knowledge about that for consumers. And a great agent, will help a buyer not say too much and make sure that they have representation. Look at in BC, it changed so you can't double end or multiply represent somebody.
Which, by the way, I think is a great idea. And I think
I do too.
we keep bringing all these ridiculous ideas from BC over here. It would be nice to see us bring a good one.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think
True.
technology really has a way of being able to make things better that is structured. So when we saw the gap that consumers weren't aligned with the technology, and the real gap is that also realtors didn't have a tool. We weren't the only ones to discover that. So there were other people in technology who went, oh my goodness, realtors haven't figured this out. I'm just going to grab all the data, put it up on a website, and make a ton of money, right? So the easiest way to do that, unfortunately, is just become a brokerage. Not that anyone has to know anything about being a brokerage. They just make this technology, and then they actually need to hire agents to be agents of that brokerage.
Are you referring to House Sigma as an example?
I'm referring to any brokerage that creates a technology to attract consumers as leads so that then agents of brokerages with those types of business models, if you're the consumer, that agents that you're working with is starting on a half tank of gas. They're actually paying half their commission to get a client. Unlike, I'd say, the agents who work by repeat and referral business who don't even need to advertise because they're so busy because their friends are already saying, oh, you've got to work with Ralph, or you need to call Reuben, or I just did a deal with Ian, and so it's this kind of thing that is really relationship driven. So
And
the
I'll
difference,
interrupt you. Like I
please.
cannot tell you how many times we've had clients go to House Sigma, because a lot of people do use it, but then they talk about just being constantly harassed to work with their agents and emails, and because they have to sign up, and it almost becomes a form of harassment to the consumer who is just going to the platform for a source of information.
Well, I think everyone's got their business models, and the great thing on the one hand is that I think at the end of the day, the consumer feels that. So one of the technologies we built into Listed is we made it possible for any consumer to choose how they're contacted. And if that's never because they're not ready, then they are assured that they're not contacted. You go in, I mean, Ian or Reuben could answer this, but you might have a client who says, I don't want to be called or texted or emailed. And when they do want to be, they can turn on their text. And when you have a great agent, you don't even have to meter that out because you gain that confidence. But I think there's so many different models in real estate that consumers got tired of being spammed because unfortunately, so much of the technology was about lead generation. Mm-hmm. So we do know lead generation. And back to intention, actually, the one question we ask is, what would love do? And then we do that. It's very simple, right? Love wouldn't have someone sign on this site and get someone who paid to show up or buy a geography, right? Someone signs up and they get Reuben because their friend has Reuben already as their agent. So probably they would too. And Reuben doesn't pay for that lead. They're not a lead. They're a connection. And, it comes to business model, which we haven't got into, but our business model is just have a flat fee for an agent to use Listed as if they, just pay for any tool that they have. And then it's a meritocracy. If they want to get all kinds of business through it, great. We needed to remove our benefit by the realtor taking certain actions so that we were never compromised in what we do.
Reuben, do you sort of want to comment on that?
Well, I kind of have a follow-up question because it sounds like a lot, and when you were kind of explaining the origin of the app, a lot of it was agent focused and how do we create these relationships and build these relationships. On the other side of it, and maybe it was just a happy accident, I also think you have the best tool for consumers and search tool and are able to provide the most information or as much as possible, as much as the MLS system allows you to. Was that kind of just a happy accident or was... Or
by design?
Was it by design? Did focus on agents and the relationship and what was able to be shared and how it was shared then lead to just having a fantastic search engine as well?
Reuben, what would love do?
I'm going to let Catherine answer that.
Yeah. But that was the answer I sort of thought.
Oh my gosh, that is such a fabulous question. And what love would do is it would, to serve the realtor best, make the best consumer tool. Because I think the failure of a lot of other brokerage tools, maybe brokerages that aren't technologies who paid someone to make an app or tried to do something, the reason they fail is they look at it from the realtor perspective. We weren't looking at the realtor and saying, let's try to get you a bunch of clients. We were saying, how can we truly improve the process and the experience for consumers to make it less stressful, to make it more comforting, to help let their guard down and develop that relationship. And those things happen when you have this great experience. So we very intentionally, to Ian's point, designed it for consumers and took into consideration the realtor. I have some agents who say to me, why don't I just use the app that comes with my MLS? And we built Listed to work with the app that comes with your MLS, because we're not trying to replace the MLS. We're trying to work in tandem with it. And I think what people don't realize is when they use the app that comes with their MLS, then you have, to Ralph's point, House Sigma out there who's beyond the MLS. It's connected to all the boards like Listed is across Canada. So all of a sudden you're out there with your own tool, the board you pay dues to, and you don't have all the inventory and you don't have the responsiveness and search features and functionality, which I think we can get to later in terms of what technology it's built on in terms of quality. But consumers need, and they're going to use an experience they enjoy. They're not going to use what their agent tells them to. Like Reuben, of course, you could say, hey, use a Listed with me. They're not going to do that unless it's compelling and they want to be there. So that's what we tried to do, is make it compelling for consumers to then attract agents and then be symbiotic.
It's interesting because when you think of House Sigma, the consumer is the product, whereas with Listed, the platform is the product. And by making seductive, off the play of love, platform to both realtors and consumers, that it seems like you're approaching it from a completely different angle.
Yeah, it's true. It almost becomes addictive, but in a positive way. There's people who agents have told me after their clients buy and sell, they're still on it. And I mean, that's just great because it's one of their highest value assets, even if it's the home they live in, right? And what's interesting is we're bringing up a particular brokerage here, but what I've found being kind of across North America is every market has its House Sigma. For example, in Nova Scotia, it's Viewpoint, right? In other places in the US, I mean, the US is funny because it's like Zillow but every place has this competing brokerage. I mean, they are out to get your clients, and they're generally, from their consumer play, out to capture you as a lead to then serve their agents so that they bring more money into the brokerage. So again, it comes back to, I believe, the intention behind it. And what's interesting is that this is shifting. This is really shifting now. I wasn't going to go to Inman this year, Inman Connect, for anyone who,
Yeah.
And so the 1 year I wasn't going to go.
I'll just interrupt for the viewers here. So Inman happens twice a year, once in New York in January, once in August, I believe, in Las Vegas. And it's basically a real estate industry conference. And they have a lot of speakers talking about trends and what's happening in the market.
Exactly. And for someone like me, it was like the TED Talks of real estate. So I was really excited to be invited to speak on a panel called the Portal Antidote, which is really interesting because Listed lives between what you'd think of as a portal, which you could think of as many realtors, many consumers picking and choosing their agent, which is not about relationship, right? Then it's some sort of strange popularity contest and you're trying to judge people on this. Or a brokerage, which I think people don't realize is also then contained to just that brokerage. So Listed lives between them, where it's all agents, all brokerages, and all consumers with the ultimate maximal benefit for everybody and built on data standards.
And what was the feedback in New York?
Oh, it was fantastic. There's a real energy to embrace a new model, specifically because two elements of the changing times. One is AI, and the other is these lawsuits that are happening. And lawsuit in Canada, in the Sunderland case, they're looking at the impact of these lawsuits, which are basically, to paraphrase or summarize briefly, sellers going back and suing real estate brokerages and their agents for arranging commission, which has always been the case, where basically the seller pays the full commission and gives half of it to the cooperating brokerage, which kind of makes a lot of sense because it's kind of awkward for the buyer to have to pay it. So I'm not even really sure how the lawsuit ever came to be even. But there's talk, and there was talk about it changing the way we do real estate by perhaps removing that commission structure whereby the cooperating agent is paid by the seller agent. So one of the interesting ramifications of that, and it could be very positive, is that it's never going to be more important for a buyer agent to show their value So I think it's going to elevate the perception of realtors in the mind of the public, especially those public who aren't familiar yet with a real estate transaction and what it takes. They're going to just see how truly valuable it is to have an agent. I mean, do you want to go to 5,000 offers and never win the day? Or do you want to work with Ian and get that first one that you really love in the home you couldn't live without on the block where, your neighbor's down the street, who's your best friend from high school?
Yeah. And within a month, not within
And
3
within a
years.
month, not in 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then from an AI perspective, it's very important because AI is just going to be like, okay, we're driving cars now instead of being in a horse and buggy. It's just going to be how we do things. It's just a technology that makes things easier. It's not going to replace anybody. So to your point, Ralph, that you brought up earlier, I think the best application of AI is to just have Ian and his client more easily understand what they're looking for together. But they already have that understanding themselves. And artificial intelligence just uses algorithms to match. It's like using a calculator, really, right? You don't have to do long form math anymore.
I guess you were well received then.
Yeah.
Short
it was
answer.
great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
amazing,
It
amazing,
was great.
amazing. When you built the app, like what type of challenges did you face? Because you do have a beautiful interface, and I think our team all agrees from the consumer experience, it is the best out there. Knowing how antiquated technology generally is in real estate, we seem to be the last industry to ever want to make a shift. And usually it's kicking and screaming as a result of lawsuits or whatever else is happening to force that change. But like, what did you have to go through to build this beautiful app?
So much. I mean, there's always in life two choices. It depends. You've heard that triad that is quality, time, price. Listed as quality. And in real estate, because time is so important, cheap and fast, unfortunately, is how so many things get made. And then because there is real estate associations are run generally by boards and they meet 12 times a year, it's very hard to bring in a new technology to a board that meets 12 times a year who don't have expertise in technology. And we had this past way of being as a real estate industry of choosing one-hit wonders. Like competition is amazing, right? Because when there's competition, you're always in pursuit of being the best. So really, your competition is yourself because you always want to be the best. So, with Listed, it was this combination of doing the slow, expensive route to get quality. So what I mean by that, without being too technical, is there's what's called cross-platform code, where you can kind of make one set of code that works for Android, web, and iPhone. Or you can make a native application, which isn't a translation of code on all platforms that's made once. It's actually making it for Apple and Swift. It's actually making it on Android and Kotlin. It's actually using web technology to make your web app. So it's 3 code sets and 3 different engineers and 3 different expertises. And then on top of that, with the boards and their technology, integrating data standards. So even as simple as how a real estate board takes beds, baths, parking, and what they call them is different between each board and data standards. So we looked at the data standards, and I'm actually the vice chair of the interoperability work group at the Real Estate Standards Organization. So when I first got into this, I looked at the Toronto Regional Real Estate Board, because that's, of course, where we started before we spread across Canada. But I thought, what's above them? Because they seem to want to do the best thing, but have challenges. So they get data standards passed down to them from these other organizations like RESO, Real Estate Standards Organization, and the Council of MLS, which is a council that takes all the MLSs in. So, of course,
I had no idea there was such a council.
Right? It's very interesting, but someone who can be expert in real estate forever, these things are not hidden, but they're kind of hidden from your daily life.
Yeah, I've never heard of that.
Right?
Yeah.
And yet they dictate how you do business. And so I think one of the biggest technological changes that I'm facing and we're facing as Listed is the idea. Like why it was so well received at Inman is because everyone's always looking, again, to Ian's point about regionalism. And what Listed does is it allows us to, in a way, compete and master the market. Whereas when you're a brokerage or a single MLS, you're mastering your game or your market. Gary Keller's brilliant at this. He wrote The Millionaire Real Estate Agent.
It's a great book. Everyone
right?
at Fox Marin has to read that book.
Of course, right? It's Real Estate 101. He always talks about mastering your game, but there's a part in it that caught my heart, which was mastering the game. And Gary Keller himself put in $40 or $50 million into making an app, but we have Keller Williams agents who need to use Listed. Like, if you can put in that much money and not make that app and have that much real estate knowledge, I got really excited. I thought, okay, anyone can do this. It's actually a function of something different and deeper and special. We didn't know what it is, but I do know that it's somewhere between doing what love would do, aligning those interests, and then, yes, having money and knowing the technology. So you have to have the expertise. So back to Ian's point initially, I had to actually, if you can believe this, become a real estate agent to really know how to even join these associations and learn all this stuff, and even to know what you guys experience on a day-to-day basis.
That's amazing. So you got your license.
I got my license, and for me, it did three things. It allowed me, again, slow and expensive, to kind of, this is like the 5-year overnight sensation, right? It allowed me to basically, if I learned, my measure or result was that it would lead to money. And that I learned that if you just want to soak it up as a sponge and serve the people you're helping, you all day get referral and repeat business. Then I took every cent I made and put it into Listed, and I really started to understand just how challenging your job is. I think, other than being an improv on stage, person, or, a brain surgeon, honestly, being a realtor is super challenging, and you have to be really on it and aware. And you have to have this selfless attitude too, of constantly being available and constantly keeping up with knowledge and innovation. I learned that, and I couldn't have understood that. I couldn't have understood the challenges if I didn't experience them.
Mm-hmm. Preach.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Preach, sister, preach. Not a lot of people understand that. You have to do it at a high level to be able to understand how much goes into it and sacrifice.
Yeah.
To be able to do this job at a high level. It's unbelievable. So
actually, Ralph, can I just say one thing there? When I first met you, I believe it was, and then came to your office that one time, I said, oh, I'm a little starstruck, because I had come across Fox Marin in a listing. And back to quality and what you put first, it was an experience. And I immediately felt just how everything was presented, how the seller their property was presented. Just the entire experience is intentional, designed, thought out, and for them, right? To really help them exceed and excel in their vision. And so it was a pleasure. So it's not surprising to see top 1% of realtors across Canada or in Toronto. I don't even need to read that, because you feel it. So it's a feeling. So thank you. Yeah.
It's what love would do.
It is what love would do. You already do that, right? So that's where you're so aligned.
I think I'm going to borrow that one. That's awesome.
It's a variation on our other theme, which is what is in the best interest of the client.
Right? Absolutely.
Always.
Yeah.
Always. That is when you're facing a challenge, that is the question you ask yourself. And it's kind of just a different version of that, is what would love do? Right?
It is. Actually, when I had to pick a brokerage at Bosley, the moniker at the top was, it all begins with trust. Mm-hmm. And if you really take that to heart, it is true. Everything begins with trust.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's an honor when somebody gives you that trust.
It is. Yeah.
And if you don't see it as such, you should not be in this business.
100%.
And how long have you been at this for? I heard 5 years. Has it been 5 years or longer? Like how?
I knew there was that gap in the issue, that I didn't have a tool to use myself. So it was probably 3 years before I had the idea and the ability to understand with Listed that what could you make where you could tap a button and find the property and have it pop up in front of you. It's about 3 years to make that happen. And I was capitalizing the business because, I also kind of wanted to, the same way I wanted to learn real estate by soaking it up as a sponge, I wanted to be very careful about the business model for realtors.
Mm-hmm.
Like one of my biggest challenges that made it hard to ask realtors to pay for it was somebody saying to me, what happens if I can't afford it? Or what happens to my clients? Like what happens to that relationship if all of a sudden I don't have listed? Because, there are a lot of things that they're baked into their business model. It's like the whole idea of planned obsolescence is that, oh, you put all your contacts in and then you can never leave, or you get cut off from them. And one of the things I wanted to figure out was how to really make it beneficial and allow anyone to leave at any time. So I always know that they're there because of the value. So we figured out something really cool. We have a version that can be downgraded for a realtor so that they're never disconnected from their clients and listed. Like money is never the reason, right? They choose to pay for listed because it's a premium experience, right? Like, Ian all day Ian's like, yeah, I want this, So it's a premium experience that you choose. So it kind of allows realtors to decide, like, you can choose your realtor by do they have listed almost, but no one is cut off. So if a consumer discovered listed and their poor agent hadn't yet, they can say, I want to use this with you. That agent can reach out to us and they can get it. The realtor experience is kind of like a version with ads, right? It doesn't work as well. It's not as convenient.
But it's there.
It's there. Yeah.
Awesome.
So that was the final What Would Love Do that we figured out. And now we're just taking off across Canada to great reception, which is fantastic.
So we're looking at 8 years? I never got the answer. 10 years?
Know. Gosh, no.
You have to ballpark it.
I actually got my license to sell real estate in 2014 and I'd come up with the idea before that. So what are we, 2024?
10 years?
10 years.
It is.
10 plus years. I believe that.
And then the product we have now and the team that we have now, which is amazing, all that work happened. And then the actual making of the technology and the app and our tech team and our engineers came together a year and a half ago. Really.
Wow.
Really.
Wow. So you're picking up velocity. And how many active, approximately, agents do you have and consumers do you have around, just so we can get an idea of your size?
Yeah, it's a really nice split. There's roughly 20,000 consumers on it and 1,400 agents. And that's with zero marketing. And part of the reason is because we support the agent who supports the client. So when I was in Silicon Valley and we were looking at investors, they said, anyone all day can buy social ads or stuff like that. And it's the same as a realtor. You don't really have to advertise when you're a great agent. It's the same as a tech company. When people are genuinely spreading your app, not because they get a little kickback if 5 more people get it, like we don't have any of that. So it's just, if you hear about it from someone, it's because they really cared. And that just brings the thread of What Would Love Do through all of it.
Yeah, look at Tesla.
Yeah.
Look at the growth of that company, not $1 in advertising.
Exactly. And you know what? It's a network effect. So like 20,000 today and how long it took to grow that is 40, then 80. That it's exponential network growth.
100%.
Yeah.
Ian and Reuben, I'll pass this over to you guys. Maybe I'll start with Ian. Do you want to share some experiences, some success stories that you've had with the app, client success stories, like where you've seen it helpful in ways that we haven't been able to see it with other types of technologies or platforms?
Catherine, you must get sick of the comparisons to House Sigma. That must be a question you face all of the time. And people bring it up, and I appreciate that you're trying politically to be like, I'm just going to say other apps and not actually use those 2 dirty words in my business. But there's a huge difference. There is really a huge difference. And I would dabble in it from time to time, but it was another agent who mentioned to me that they loved using Listed and they felt like it was going to be the future of connectivity and relationships. And that's what sold me on downloading it and starting to use it in that sort of free zone, in that trial basis. So Ralph, to answer your question about a success story, I set up a few people, started getting used to it myself, which is not difficult. It's very user-friendly. I don't think I've gotten really any questions from anyone who's adopted it. And I can see that they've set up their own searches. And more recently, you've added notification to us that someone's been active, which is great as well. So I kind of can almost time it that it's like, oh, in about 90 seconds, I'm going to get a text message from, Dave, because he was just active in the last 10 minutes and he's going to ask me about something. An early success story for me was in those first 30 days of using it. setting up a search to get immediate responses for new listings. Something came out. So day zero is what we call it when it's on MLS and it's only just arrived. The first full day is the first 24-hour cycle it's been in. Perfect for a client. Sent it to the client. Client responded right away within the app. We went to see it within a few hours. We had it bought on day zero. Easy peasy, done and dusted. And I was like, okay. And that was still in the free version. So I was like, that's paying for my subscription to this for the next 3 years, right? Like that to me was like, put it over the top. And the other thing that I still have to remind myself that I have is this great feature that Listed has is that button up in the top corner, the Find Me button. Because sometimes I'm still, even with all my licensing and everything that I know, I'm still standing out front of a property with a for sale sign going, what the heck is this? How come this isn't and I'm like, oh yeah, I have the Find Me button. So I hit Find Me and it brings me up on a map and it's like, this listing you're standing right in front of is this. And here's who the listing agent is. And here's the price, and here are the details. So that's a couple of things that I've got. Reuben, what about you? I'll throw it over to you.
Oh, just before you go to Reuben,
Sure.
I really love that because if I break that apart a little bit, like your competitor, another agent, right, told you about Listed, which is so amazing because I think one thing that the consumers don't know and is true of all of you, the way you treat your colleagues is as important as the way you treat your clients.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's such a powerful thing to be working with an agent who is a colleague amongst colleagues,
A
with
cooperator.
their peers, a cooperator. Agents who use House Sigma is actually out to get your clients versus Listed, which is a brokerage agnostic benign platform. So, that's been one of the differences that I've, been trying to explain to agents who think it's no big deal to use a tool that is not their own, which is kind of crazy, right? And the other thing that I would say is with the notifications, if your clients are using these other apps and they're signing in, all that data is being collected about them from someone they don't know.
They're
right?
the product.
They are the product, back to Ralph's point. And for you, you're getting that information so that you two can have a relationship. They're able to actually control it as well or not. And you are the only one who has it. And your intention is just to help them. So it makes it kind of good information because that information in the wrong hands can be not so good information. And it's important people know that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And in everything else, you're sort of copying and pasting and moving it over to your text window or adding it to an email. And this, you're just sort of like, because you have that connection already, they're just like, tell me more about this in one shot, right? Without having to do all the copying and pasting. And what do I do? Do I go into realtor.ca and then send you, I'm going to copy and paste this link and that? And which way do you want to receive it? And once you and your client are both in there, it's easy. The communication is easy.
Actually, a little surprise win with technology and with the boards. John DeMichelle and the Toronto Regional Real Estate Board, I mean, his vision is really that it be amazing. And he's made such strides. He's got so many challenges facing him and so many agents. But one win that happened, I'm so excited for you guys to try this. If you haven't already, it happened like a few days ago. They updated their back end. So nobody would know about this, but it really has them meeting their promise, which is to have a choice of systems and better integrations. So now when you go into Listed as an agent and you tap open in Treb Realm, it just looks at your face, you look at your phone, and you're in the listing. So now you've got broker remarks, geo warehouse, book a showing seamlessly.
Amazing.
Oh my gosh, that is amazing.
Thank you, Treb.
Yeah.
A little win there for Treb.
Treb adopted the What Would Love Do.
And you can't do that on House Sigma as an agent, right? Because it's not, it's so, work with the boards, work with organized real estate.
And that's the one thing that from especially the past few months, I would always, and it's why right at the beginning, I was a little bit reluctant, to be quite honest, to use Listed. After you came into the office, you gave this amazing presentation. I was like, okay, this is really cool, but it still doesn't give me everything that I need. And I would always have to go back and forth and log onto Realm and do this and that. So I actually have not experienced that yet, but that sounds really exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Reuben, I can't wait for you to experience it. It's so exciting. It's so exciting. Yeah, it just, honestly, all the micro waiting it's going to save you so much time over a day, easily an hour.
And Reuben, is there anything you want to share about wins that you've had with clients, or how it's been useful either to you as an agent or to any clients that we've had in their
Yeah,
search?
there are definitely a few things that come to mind. Like Ian, I had a success story because of the notifications. There was one property that I showed to a client that, in both of our opinion, was way overlisted. A week later, $50,000 price reduction, still overlisted. A week later, a $40,000 price reduction. Okay, still high, but we're getting there. And usually, I mean, part of my day, usually at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day, and then anytime I have in the middle of the day, I'll log on to MLS and I'll see, okay, well, what has come up today? This particular day where this property came down in price, I had a long afternoon and evening of showings. I got home at like 10:30 and I was like, I'm not going to check today. But I got this listed notification as I was walking through my front door they obviously made this price change very late in the day. And so immediately I said, hey, I texted my client. She goes, oh my God, I was about to text you. And
She saw it too.
then she saw it too. She got the notification as well of this price reduction. And all of a sudden we were at a point where, okay, this actually makes sense to try and put pen to paper and to put something together. And had we both not received that notification, that we could have waited another 12 hours. There could have been all of this other stuff that went on. And it was only because at 10:30 at night, we got this notification both simultaneously, and we were both so on the same page that we were able to put together a successful offer and purchase that property. And so that, not that I wasn't converted already, but that was very much okay, this is a really useful tool.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll touch on one other thing or actually two other things. Like Ian, I really like that activity log
Mm-hmm.
that is, I think, a more recent addition to the app. And because it can also help us. And it's like you said, how can we best service our client? How can we be more on the same page? And if I see somebody is looking at properties that potentially outside the realm of our initial scope of their search, I can then say, hey, like, what's the deal here? Does anything need to change? Like, do we need to divert your search? And so that information is very, very useful. And sometimes it's, I just like looking at these $7 million properties in Rosedale. But sometimes it's, yeah, you know what? I actually do. And then just one last thing from a day-to-day, I would always send, and I still do for clear communication, these emails. If I have like 4, 6, 8 searches or showings with one client in one day, I'll send them a long email. I'll send them a link to the MLS listings. But then feedback that I was getting was, I can't open this on my phone. Like, I try and click a picture and it's all big and blurry and I don't really know where to look for all the information. So I've started, and it's super easy, just creating lists on Listed of, okay, I'm going to show Robert these 6 properties today. Robert, here's a direct link to the 6 properties that we're seeing on Listed. And it just makes everybody's life so much easier.
Yeah, with great formatting,
Yes.
right? And layout and readability and all of those things. Yeah, 100%.
Oh my gosh, Reuben, thank you so much. When I was listening to you, and I just love that that's happening for you, I was so inspired just actually thinking back to all the micro moments where, from the notebook, we discovered something. Like your first experience there is really just how much time matters in real estate. I don't think people realize how much timing matters. So, those notifications are everything. And that led to little tiny things Listed has that I don't think other things have. Like, you could like a sold listing or a terminated listing, and then you're notified the minute it comes back on the market. Because we were seeing a lot of listed at 999. Then you get the notification it came back at 1.4, right? Then now you know your range, and you could be the first one to get in an offer and go, no, guys, it's really 1.350 or 1.270 or whatever it is. So it's saving time and being efficient. And also in that, it's so stressful. Little things like guessing the price. Your clients walking down the street and they wonder, and they walk the dog and they're like, they see the neighbor's house even, and how much did that go for? Or I had an agent who called me up and said, my client called me to do a price reduction because she saw the other houses that are in the neighborhood that are for sale were sitting there. And if she asked me if we just went a little bit lower, would that help us get some traction? And he said that's the first time in his 25-year career that a client had called him to do a price
It's
reduction.
a savvy seller.
I think it's just, finally understanding, back to what you said, you can have all the data, Ralph, but unless you've got someone
helping you understand it.
curating it, analyzing it, but you don't really understand. So now that you have this information in a way that's not stressful, it really helps. And I mean, Reuben, being able to go a level deeper and start to organize what you like and see from your clients that they're not lying when they say what they want. They actually don't know, right? Part of the real estate journey is not knowing what you want and discovering another neighborhood or finding a balance between what you want and what you can afford, or then making a plan for the move up plan, because that actually works really well, the move up plan, right? That's how you get to become living in the $8 million Rosedale mansion.
It's like the talking
So
head
all
song.
these little insights that would only come from a realtor that truly help consumers, that then you can bake into a product to make it happen organically. That's kind of the sweet spot.
It's interesting. We at Fox Marin have a saying, time kills deals.
Yeah.
And the faster you can react, especially as you were saying earlier, this market is about to really start to pick up in terms of velocity. The agents that are on it and understand how to leverage technology and understand how to better understand their clients quicker, those are the ones that are not just going to win for themselves, but more importantly, going to win for their clients. That's why tools like this can be so, so helpful, because the generation of agents that are on these type of platforms versus the ones that are not, you're going to start to see a dramatic shift in terms of who consumers want to start to work with. And so being able to utilize these tools and being a part of this is awesome. And again, that's why we're so happy to have you here.
On that point, what's interesting demographically, that is not only true, but it's not, as one might think, age or sex related, right? The demographics are, I've got some of the most avid agents who adopted are in their 70s. They're amazing agents. And you have young tech savvy people as well. So it's actually interesting that it crosses demographic and psychographic bounds.
It's a mindset. And
it's a mindset.
I bet you those 70-year-olds who are on it probably look like 40-year-olds, because if you have that type of mindset, if you have that type of elastic sort of mindset and you're always open to change, it opens up everywhere. So a question I have now for you is like, what is the future for Listed?
Our vision is that it would exist everywhere, and you, agent or client, could tap a button and find a property in front of you. It would be wonderful if it were global. There's no reason that it can't be. Through the Real Estate Standards Organization, we've opened up bringing standards to Europe, which is a start. Because if you can believe it, in Europe, you can
Europe's a hot mess, from what I understand.
It's a hot mess. You could, as a seller, hire 5 agents and they can all be selling your house. They could all be different prices. You could be a buyer and go, that house is listed 10 times and has 7 different prices. And it's off the market. So our vision for Listed is we just keep making it better, and that we're able to achieve that, and that it's known that we do it through supporting organized real estate, because you need a professional to go through this process, however that looks. And unfortunately, sometimes organized real estate is the thing in its own way. And so I'm hoping that enough agents and consumers understand how good this is, that they support it to the point where the people who want to keep the information away or make decisions based on greed can't prevail. Agents have to know how empowered they are to make choices. Buying Listed, having your subscription, actually is one little way to support that movement forward of the whole industry elevating.
Awesome. Well, we're happy to be supportive of both.
Thank you.
Do you guys have anything else you'd like to add, Ian or Reuben, before we wrap up?
I have a question, and Catherine, because we have show notes, when this is wrapped up, we'll put information where people can go. is there somewhere where, not as an agent, but as somebody who maybe doesn't have an agent yet, I want to find out more about listed? Is there like a YouTube video that would sort of say, if
Oh,
you get
yeah.
this is what you'll, can you send that to Corey so that we can put some of these things up so people can find out more?
100%. We would love people to find out more about Listed. And I can tell you the best way to find out about Listed is to scan either of the QR codes or click the link below, which will take you to two of the best real estate agents in Toronto. Actually, we could add yours too, but you will get Reuben or Ian. And through them, everything is at your fingertips. How to do a search, how to circle a condo building and be notified about anything in that property. So yes, it's through the agent. There's no way of actually finding, say, Listed. It's always through your agent. So they'll have that through you. Ian.
Okay. So let that be known. If you want to work with Reuben or I, just reach out to us, send us a text. We'll send you a link to Listed, or Corey or Ralph for that matter. One thing that I struggle with, and I didn't mean for this to be a suggestion, is some of those people who are like, oh, Ian sent me Listed, I have to give my email. Right.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to. And you get some people who are just tired of giving their email, and then they start getting newsletters twice a day from this, whatever it is that they gave their email for. And that's kind of why I was asking about that. If I send Bob the link and he's like, oh, geez, here we go, because Bob and I are still relatively new to each other. That's where I'm looking for that thing where they can get information before making the commitment. And I'm just throwing it out there. Like,
Excellent.
even if there was just 90 seconds or 120 seconds, not as advertising, but just as information for the consumer to be like, if you do give that email, here's what you're going to get.
And
Here are the
here's not what
benefits.
you're going to get.
And
That's
here's
right.
not what you're going to get. Yeah.
I
feel like that
Ian,
would help me. So I'm just throwing that out there. And I would have said it to you privately, but it occurred to me as we're doing this that I had that happen this week. A gentleman who's a little older and just didn't want to sign up for another thing, as much as I tried to explain to him all of the benefits.
I'm so glad you brought that up, and I'm glad it came up the way it did now, because it's incredibly important that the consumer understands no realtor is just out there to get all their information. It's actually a requirement of the technology through the board that it's actually defined in the rules and regulations of the real estate board. You must get the name, you must get the email, you must get the information of the person signing up, because they have to have a bona fide interest in real estate. That is set up by the real estate board to protect the data from scraping and make sure that when you, as a custodian of the data, are giving it to genuine clients, and that no one's scraping or doing anything with the data. So I believe the moment that people realize that, okay, this is the last time I need to put in my phone number and my email because now I'm with Ian. But all those other times they put in their phone number and email, they got spammed and they got stuff. So this time is different. It's the last time. And we will make sure you have something that helps actually them understand that before downloading it. So thank you.
Yeah.
Great suggestion.
Yeah. And I didn't want to get into like, oh, and here's what I don't like, and here's what I don't like. But it just occurred to me as we were talking that it was like, oh, that would, since I've got her on the line here, I will ask for this.
To a point, I don't know what any company that doesn't want to hear what you don't like and wants to hear what you like isn't going to stay in business. I unfortunately only want to hear what you don't like. Like, great if you like stuff. You were doing a great job.
Yeah.
I want to hear what you don't like, because our desire is to be constantly evolving. That's how life is. That's our cells in our body. Back to Ralph's point about the people using Listed being, if they're in their 70s, more like a 40 or 50-year-old. It's how you think, and it's changing and moving and keeping healthy.
Absolutely. Yeah. You can't just coast, right? You got to keep making change. And that's all of us in this field. You've got to keep up.
Reuben, anything you'd like to add or ask about or comment on?
No, I think this was as much informative to me as anything, and I look forward to continuing to learn and grow with the app.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. This was so fun and such an honor and pleasure to be part of the Fox Marin podcast.
Well, we're so excited and happy to
subscriber.
have you here. Thank you
Everyone
so much.
should be subscribing. I'm a subscriber. I love it. I learned so much I didn't know from your podcast. When I get a notification, I love it.
Amazing. And there you have it. Ian, I'll let you take us home.
Absolutely. As we wrap up today's insightful conversation with Catherine MacIntosh, we're left inspired by the story of Listed and its positive impact on the real estate industry. From Catherine's unique blend of design, technology, and real estate prowess to her dedication to industry standards, Listed is a symbol of needed innovation. Don't forget to check out the app and experience firsthand how it simplifies your real estate ventures. Links will be provided below for things that you can look up and download. And don't forget to reach out to Reuben and I, and we'll send you a quick connection to it if you like. We will be sure to link Catherine's contact information and the app information in the show notes below, like I just said. For more enlightened discussions like this, subscribe, like, or comment with any questions or ideas. Catherine, once again, thank you so much for joining us. That was awesome.
Thank you. Everything with Fox Marin is thoughtful and intentional. It's designed over time to work the best because you've got this experience of working with people and you've grown such a core team where you're all so connected and help each other. So the nice for sure comes into it. But that experience translated to me, it translates to clients. It's not often that you get kind of that full holistic package. So I think a reason that makes you guys special is just that it's exceptional.
Thank you. Thank you. Very kind. I'm a little bit clamped. I don't know what to say. Catherine, it's always so nice also with you being the head of this, that we can all just reach out to you and get your ear to talk about things when we have questions and suggestions, like I said earlier. So it's all good.
It's true. My cell number is available to any agent who needs to reach me.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope that should never change. And nobody overuses it. It's just amazing when you actually, like when the buck stops here and you're reachable,
mm-hmm.
people highly respect that. And then they reach out when they need to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Thank you again. Ralph, in closing, what would you like our viewers to do?
Oh my God, this has been such a great show. To anybody who's stayed on this journey today with us right to the end, we'd absolutely love. Speaking of love today, another theme, to hear from you. Please be sure to smash that subscribe button down below. And if you have any comments, as long as they're constructive, we'd absolutely love to hear from you. I hope everyone has a wonderful day, and we will see you next week. Bye.
Bye, everybody.